Let's get started. My name is Brian Anderson. I'm the VP of Technology at Eagle Technologies, and today we're going to be talking about Cynet, but more importantly, or I think more interesting from my perspective, MITRE. So, what MITRE is, why it's important to have independent validation, and how you can use the MITRE data to evaluate not only what you have, but maybe what you're looking at. Selfishly, we kind of hope that's Cynet today, but we'll talk more about that as well. Let me go ahead and get some introductions out of the way. So, Nick, only because you're next under my face, let's start with Nick.
Yeah, appreciate it, Brian, and appreciate all the attendance that was stated. I think this is going to be a good use of time, and please keep this interactive. If you guys have questions, jump in the chat, stop us from talking. But on my side, my name is Nick Shea. I'm one of the channel account managers for Cynet. I've been with Cynet for about, believe it or not, over 5 years. But again, I work with Brian and the rest of the team day in and day out. There's a strong collaboration between what we do, and our biggest thing is making sure the customers are happy and see the value in what we do. So we're hoping to shed light on the MITRE side, the more technical side of why Cynet is doing what we're doing. And of course, I'm pretty much the main point of contact. So you'll be stuck with me if you decide to talk with Cynet any further. But looking forward to the conversation today.
All right. Thanks, Nick. And Kevin, who are you and what are you doing here?
Yeah. So Kevin Davey, I'm the sales engineer with Cynet. So bringing the technical side of Cynet to the table, explaining things from the pre-sales side. Typically in my day-to-day workflow, I'm doing demos, I'm setting up trials, answering questions, and kind of making sure that the product's value meets the everyday need. Today, I'll be walking you guys through MITRE's website, explaining how to use the website, showing you how to interpret the results, and explaining how that impacts us.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yes, Kevin said he's doing the heavy lifting. He's the meat and potatoes today. I am more of an amuse-bouche. I'm going to wake up your palate with a couple of slides, and then we're going to get into Kevin's savory main content. And remind me never to use that analogy ever again, Nick.
I got you.
So let's get into it. Yeah, so one thing that Nick and Kevin may have mentioned that I didn't hear it, but these guys also stick around after the sale. They're here to take care of you, before and after. And I always love companies that do that. But Eagle's been working with Cynet and Nick for 5+ years now. It's been a good ride. So I've spent a lot of time explaining to customers about how we found Cynet almost 6 years ago and how that due diligence and all of our testing really lured us in their direction. To be honest, I'm a little tired of those slides. I've talked on them too much. So I thought I'd refresh that content. I've got a couple of slides that kind of talk about how Eagle does due diligence. I think you may have heard me say this before, but we don't want to be an a la carte partner, right? We want to add value. So we think it's our responsibility to always be testing products, listening to market, understanding how things are changing so that we can come to our customers and be more informed. So one thing I'm always reminded of when I'm looking at product is this old project management phrase: good, fast, affordable. You can only pick two, or you can only have two. And of course, the reason for that is two usually cancel out the third. So here's 3 good examples. So if a product is good and fast, and so what I mean by that is a great product, fast relates to innovation. Typically, they're not affordable, right? That requires a lot of resources. There are occasional exceptions where there's a lot of talent and vision, but usually you see this where venture capital money flows. So, right now it's AI, it was SaaS and cloud, even enterprise storage had a run 10 to 15 years ago. But most of our customers aren't looking to buy the most expensive thing they can get their hands on. Right? I don't think we're offering a lot of value at Eagle if we're running around just searching for the Cadillacs. The second bucket, good and affordable. So that usually means that they're not going to innovate very fast. And that may work in some parts of IT, but certainly not in cybersecurity. The threats evolve too fast. AI's made it a lot worse. I will say that sometimes we see really good products get gobbled up by really large vendors. It's still a good product, but the pace of innovation slows immensely. Once again, that may work for some areas of IT, not for cybersecurity. And then finally, fast and affordable, but not good. I'm probably least fond of this group, right? So think of companies that are more focused on marketing, getting check marks, claiming they have features, but the user experience is bad, right? The product doesn't work. They don't integrate well. The biggest example I usually see in the red flag when us at Eagle are talking to vendors is when we notice that they what I call innovate through acquisition, right? So they're buying features, they're buying check marks. Those products never work well. The company themselves, they spend more time on integration than innovation, and it's not a good customer experience. So, having said all of that, what I'm really looking for is what I affectionately call the unicorn, right? Something that's good, fast, and affordable. And I can honestly tell you in the almost 15 years I've been at Eagle, I think we found that 2 or 3 times, where it's almost impossible for me to pick at the product. I'm that impressed. And the reason I made everyone suffer through that is I actually believe that Cynet's one of those unicorns. So they have a great product. I don't want to steal Kevin's thunder, but the last 3 MITRE evaluations, once again, this is independent testing, and Kevin will talk about what this means, but this was a Cynet's out-of-the-box settings that represent our customer environments. They killed it, right? So efficacy is above all when it relates to cybersecurity, and they have a really great story there. The other thing I like about Cynet is they built a great product because they targeted the kind of customers that Eagle serves, right? If you've got Gartner's recommended 7 security officers working around the clock, maybe we have more to talk about. I don't know if I have one customer that can say that though. So, while you're sleeping, while you're focusing on other things, Cynet is working for you. And of course, these 3 items actually are all interrelated. So I could have easily put this 3rd bullet down. But because of the way they've innovated, they also have the lowest resource utilization. But really, it reflects a great product. I've had a lot of customers have issues on their servers getting hammered because of their endpoint. I've had customers upgrade 300 laptops because endpoint is hurting them too much. So that was really important during our evaluation 5 years ago, and it continues. In terms of innovation or being fast, there's a couple of things. They're lean and agile. They have really talented people. I'm on the Cynet Partner Advisory Council, so I get to meet them. Really impressive people. But they're able, because of all of that, and because they built the product from the ground up, they're able to innovate it quickly, which once again is really important in cybersecurity. And something I always like to mention, because I think it's impactful, is that when I talk to cybersecurity companies, I always ask them this one question. I say, so let's assume there is a breach. What do you do next? And literally everyone that I've ever asked this question but Cynet says, well, if there's an actual breach, I would recommend getting an incident response team involved. And of course, anyone that's done that knows there's often a $10,000 retainer just to have that conversation. If you ask Nick or Kevin what you do in that situation, they'll tell you that their SOC team is their IR team, and they will get engaged immediately, right? It's their product, it's their responsibility. They're going to help you mitigate the threat. So I think that's really impactful, and it speaks to the confidence they have in their own product. And then finally, because they've built that product from the ground up and because they have good vision and they're innovative, they've actually made the product affordable, which is really important in the SMB market. So to close out, what I always tell customers about Cynet is that if you have what you think is a subpar product, maybe you bought it because it was affordable, Cynet can come in and they can raise the bar, they can increase your security posture, and they can do it without breaking the budget. And if you bought the Cadillac and it's hurting your budget, Cynet can improve your security posture and free up some of that budget money so you can focus on other things. So I hope that's adds a little bit of light into how we perform due diligence and why we're big fans of Cynet and why we've had such success over the last 5 years.
Cynet loves to do independent evaluations. MITRE is one of them, but we've established ourselves as a recognized leader in GigaOM, a strong performer in Gardner, a leader in G2, and we're basically just trying to get all these different evaluators to speak about us and tell us what they think, so that we can try to get these independent third-party testings behind us and say, hey, it's not just us preaching and standing on our soapbox. It's real world results that we're finding, and consistently as well. MITRE being one of the most consistent that we have for the past 3 years in a row. As Brian mentioned, we have knocked it out of the park. We could not have done better, and we did this all with 0 configuration changes. So that's one of the things that I find one of the most impactful, because when you think of Microsoft or some of the bigger enterprise level solutions, you need someone that's been using it for a while, that knows where that hidden feature is in that one place that you'd never even know existed, and they're going to go turn it on, and now they have that edge. But with Cynet, you install our agent, you plug in our SaaS and cloud stuff, you do log collection, and you walk away, right? There's no tuning. That saves you time on implementation. It's going to save you a whole lot in the long run. But in 2025's MITRE ATT&CK Evaluations, which is what we're going to focus on today's discussion, they combine telemetry, additional sources from all over the place, like AWS, and Cynet, is really designed to hit all over your environment, the network, the cloud, and the endpoint. So as we start to see MITRE evolving their evaluations and expanding that, it helps to speak to the story of Cynet as well. But to take a step back and explain MITRE a bit for folks that may not be familiar with them, MITRE really is designed to better the cybersecurity space. They are a nonprofit organization traditionally funded by U.S. government grants, and they really are designed as a way for us to kind of better the cybersecurity space. So one of the main things that they are known for is the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And that would be basically like a Wikipedia or a periodic table of elements for all the types of cybersecurity attacks that have ever been seen. And the way that they're doing this is by collecting submissions from real world attacks to better the cybersecurity industry, to bring awareness and educate the space, right? So there's this huge, kind of table that most folks are familiar with that includes all kinds of attacks, techniques, and sub techniques within that. So what I'm going to do is actually bring us to the MITRE website, and this is a public website that anybody could go to if you'd like. I think we're going to share the link, Brian, keep me honest, after the presentation, but if you just Google MITRE ATT&CK Evaluations 2025, you're going to land right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, just interject. Yeah, we're going to send a follow-up with this link, because I think one of the coolest things about today's presentation is having independent data and comparing it against what you own, right?
Exactly. And it is going to land here maybe in the cohort, which is like everybody combined, and it just gives like a high level of results on what all the vendors did, which is pretty neat to see, just kind of where the space lands and where, kind of where the cat and mouse game is. But I like to do the individual results so that we can compare two, folks against each other. And there's tons of different examples, tons of different scenarios. We got lots of names here. Why don't we put in the chat who you guys want to see us put up against Cynet? We'll put Cynet in the ring here, but we got Acronis, CrowdStrike, Cybereason, ESET. Does anybody want to plop in the chat some of these names that you'd like to see us go up against? WatchGuard, Sophos. We got a Sophos.
All right, we got a Sophos.
CrowdStrike, WatchGuard. Okay, so let's throw Sophos in here.
Yep.
We got two for
Anderson
CrowdStrike.
was the quickest to respond, so he wins.
Yeah, it's two Sophos, CrowdStrike.
Boom.
So those are the first two.
And actually, as of the 2025 evaluation, they made it the default that when you come here, it's actually toggled to show the first phase. In the previous years, I'll show you it actually does the opposite. But what we're looking at here, and the detection key will go into a little bit more. The idea is that you want to be in this dark purple. And this was actually performed, the test, two times. The first time, nobody knew what was going to hit them. And the second time, vendors were able to make changes to see if they could actually stop the attacks. So when I toggle this switch, this is going to show after they were able to make changes. But to us, we really want to be hitting the best results on the first iteration where we didn't know what was coming. Because basically in the real world, attackers are not going to come tomorrow and say, hey, I was just kidding. I'm going to come back and do the same thing. Make sure you have your settings all together and get everything ready to go, right? So a lot of vendors are going to report on their second phase, the second half results, because that's what looks a lot better. Cynet, we always love to see those first iterations. We, in this 2025 version, I think we were the only ones that hit 100%. CrowdStrike was in second, I'll call it, but there really is no first place. It's really just an evaluation. They got one missed here on this particular event. But Sophos had 22 totally missed and a couple that they sort of knew what was going on but didn't do anything about, and etc. But you can essentially go through and see each one of the steps. These steps are all going to follow different MITRE attack tactics and techniques. So it explains what was going on. In this case, it started off with a spear phishing link. As we're going through here, we did some account manipulation and things of that nature. And even if you're familiar with the vendors, you can look at them side by side, see how it was displayed in this particular vendor, and then compare it to another one, right? So Cynet versus CrowdStrike, etc. So cool information to go through here. And as you look at the drop downs, we have options for 2024, 2023. And the participants actually are going to change, which is interesting. So if you don't see somebody in the year that you're interested in here, you could always jump to a different year and see if they showed up maybe earlier on. As the game kind of gets a little bit more tricky and things get the heat gets turned up, vendors are certainly thinking twice about entering because it certainly puts them in the light, and they can see sort of what's in between the cracks and where they fall short.
Yeah,
So
Kevin,
well,
Chris,
hmm,
go ahead,
yeah.
Ryan.
I think we were both going to try to accomplish the same thing, Nick. So we had a couple of questions come in. The first one, I will preface by saying that we are doing this as a roadshow as well in person, and Kevin's boss, TJ, is at that roadshow. He actually was involved in Cynet's MITRE evaluations. So I'm going to give Kevin a crack at this, but if you want to go really far down the rabbit hole, attend one of those lunch and learns. So Kevin, Chris says you mentioned 100% detection in MITRE. What specific tactics or techniques were hardest to cover?
The hardest to cover. I'd have to look back at the evaluations. I'd have to also kind of understand what is the hard, right? I mean, there are more complex attacks, obviously, so those are going to be the ones that are going to be certainly the more tricky or the ones that vendors are falling short on. If we look at the different attacks and you compare them to the vendors, you can certainly see where some are falling short than others. So Cynet certainly, hitting 100% across the board. You can compare which vendors struggle the most with. I think that scattered spider tactic, the first one that we were looking at, was certainly one that a lot of folks did struggle with. ESET, for example, they don't even have technology to cover many of the tactics and techniques, so it's just simply not applicable. You'll see a grayed out area for like half of that entire attack. So that scattered spider one was certainly one of the main ones.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess if I were to give my 2 cents to that too, I think the hardest part about, I guess, this specific evaluation is what they add from the previous year, right? So in this year, it was a multi-platform testing expansion, right? So Mac was added, AWS, there was things like reconnaissance. I think like the full cloud adversary was in there, Kevin, right? So I think it's about what they add each year that makes it difficult and harder to keep up and keep separating yourself from the group.
Yeah, exactly. And you're exactly right. AWS was just added. The year before that, they had added Mac OS. We still did very well there. So definitely they're constantly raising the bar. And I'm sure as the 2026 one rolls around, they're going to add some new stuff that we're going to be sweating over. Everyone will be. So.
Yeah. And hey, Kevin, if I can just add a little bit, one of the things that's interesting about MITRE is they're not telling you what to think with this data. They're just presenting it. So you'll always notice after the MITRE evaluations that almost every vendor takes some little piece of the data and tries to show how awesome they are, right? So one of the things we hope to get out of that is, if it's this year or next year, when a certain vendor brags how awesome they are, delete that email and come to this website and stack them up against something else you have or you're interested in, because that's where the proof is in the pudding. And I also don't want to understate how important it is looking at day one results, because almost everybody that markets themselves shows their day 3 results. And once again, not at all reflective of your environment. We don't get second chances.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Do we have any other questions? Oh, sorry to keep interrupting you, Kevin.
No, you're good.
How long does the typical deployment take for a mid-sized company?
Well, it's typically removing whatever you would have in place unless you have Windows Defender, in which case that steps out of the way automatically. We don't have any restart ever with our agent that's being installed, and that's going to do 90% of the heavy lifting. And that agent probably takes all of maybe 15 seconds to install. And without a restart, it's probably going to be, I don't know, spun up in maybe 1,000 devices with an RMM. You can do it in an afternoon, easy. So
Yeah.
definitely very quick.
Yeah, I was just talking to a customer
Chris,
yesterday replacing CrowdStrike. Sorry, Nick. It was 5 minutes to uninstall CrowdStrike. It was 45 seconds to install Cynet with no reboot necessary.
Yeah. I was just going to say, typically the new customers that I see come on, I typically say leave 2 weeks. It's all dependent on the time that you need to complete it in. And like Kevin said, we've seen customers complete it in a day to a week, all the way to a month, right? So I say 2 weeks to be safe.
Awesome. And I got one more question. When are you doing the demos? So a couple of ways we could answer that. So at the end of this, if anyone wants a one-on-one demo so they can ask questions and we can go through that, that's something that's really common. We're happy to do. If you're talking about the in-person events, the lunch and learns, we have one at almost every major geo and city. So reach out to your account executive if you haven't seen that invite come through, and we'll get you set up. Yeah. So Patrick was talking about the lunch and learns. Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to anyone on here or your account exec, and we'll get you the invite if you haven't seen it already. And I'll stop interrupting you, Kevin, for now.
Yeah, sure. We can talk about the log question in a bit. So yeah, MITRE, just to sort of frame them out a little bit, have these three main goals that they've established for themselves to essentially, again, better the cybersecurity space and kind of bring light to the attacks and the types of things that are out there. And many vendors will sort of line themselves up with that MITRE ATT&CK framework, checking off the boxes to say, yeah, we blocked this, we blocked that. But those are just the historical events. Those are the ones that have happened already. Tomorrow, the attackers are going to change what they're doing, right? And especially with AI in the mix, things are becoming much more complex to try to keep up with what they're going to do tomorrow. With that, MITRE essentially, has these evaluations as we were talking about, and they're really just getting harder, right? To try to keep up with those same attacks, right? So we see what's happening. We're seeing what the attackers are doing. It's getting worse every day. MITRE is trying to reflect that in their evaluations. They're recreating the attacks over the past year, and they're adding new criteria every year as the threat landscape evolves to try to, bring again attention, awareness to those types of attacks. So the test is completed over 4 days, as we've kind of started to allude to, and vendors are given the chance to block attacks with that second iteration with configurations to their product. So they have a chance to change, but they're also able to kind of just see how they did without any tuning. Real world attacks are really, sophisticated in this evaluation. So they're trying to just try to make everything exactly as it was, and they actually build out full virtual machine environments and run through the entire scenarios. Each year, the evaluation, based on what market the market is doing, MITRE will essentially try to focus on that iteration or that part of the threat landscape. So this past iteration, as Nick started to say, was focused on Windows, Linux, and AWS, because AWS being the first time it's showing up here really has started to become something that's a focus in the threat landscape. The other thing that was added in 2025 was ITDR detection, which is another thing that's really being up and coming in the space. So adding AWS and ITDR detection was certainly bringing new threats and new threat vectors to the space. If you've been following MITRE evaluations for a few years, 2024 brought some eye-opening results for a lot of vendors, and that, along with many other factors, resulted in fewer vendors participating in the 2025 evaluation. So on the left-hand side of this slide, you can see where there were only a handful of vendors that were willing to see how their product performed under the increasingly challenging evaluations. And the results of these evaluations and participation therein are a hot topic of conversation in the cybersecurity space, as Brian was alluding to. So more and more, as these MITRE evaluations are being put under a microscope, vendors are kind of really reconsidering if they want to participate or not, and what that means for them.
Yeah, I would go on to say that some of the big 800-pound gorillas are worried about their reputation being tarnished, but kind of funny to me by actual real-world results, right?
Yeah, they don't want to be they don't want to be evaluated. Yeah. In 2025, each day simulated a different situation that the vendors had to perform in, and each sub-test was a different MITRE attack technique. So there's a total of 90 malicious substeps and 17 legitimate substeps. There's ever since 2024, a layer of false positives. So they throw a bunch of noise and say, let's see if they're going to make noise. Let's see if they're going to create alerts. Let's see if this is going to confuse them. And so when you're looking at the MITRE results, we started to talk about this. There's a range of how the attacks can be handled, and that's where we see the color gradient coming into play. So they may know something happened, but didn't do anything. They maybe didn't know anything happened at all. They maybe stopped the attack, but can't explain it. Or missed it altogether. Whatever. And the best result you can get is the dark purple, which basically means that the attack was seen, it can be explained, and it was stopped. So, the idea is a lot of vendors in the space are like, yeah, we stopped it. It's like, okay, what happened? I don't know. It just looks like bad. And, there was this alert and we give you very little info. With Cynet, we want to be able to explain the whole, situation, the event and what was going on, what to do to stop it, how to prevent it, all the things, right? So we want to be very clear on all the information and bringing it to light. And that's what we were able to do. So we hit that at 100%. When we're looking at false positives, there's three results that you can get. Vendors reported it, vendors did not report it, or the product simply does not cover that part of the attack. ESET's always the one that I think of because many times they just don't have the coverage, they just don't have the technology to even look at these types of attacks and techniques. This is a snapshot from the 2024 evaluations where similar to our performance in 2023, Cynet hit 100% detection and prevention. So you can kind of just see what it looks like when you have it versus when you're seeing the colors that are the opposite.
Hey, Kevin, can you go back?
Yeah, sure.
So, you see the purple on the far left. Why is the gray follow?
Because we've already blocked the attack. So this just basically shows that we've already stopped it before it got to that point. Whereas if you see a yellow, it means it was generally detected or maybe wasn't fully stopped. It always ends at that detection and that prevention. So these are each of the steps of the tests, each of the sub steps, and you want to get to the black, at the very beginning so that it stopped and it doesn't go any further and you knew all about it and what it was.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So here, we're going to go through the results in a little bit more detail. Just, you can obviously go to the website, but this frames it just so you can see the aggregate results. And this graph shows how Cynet was able to fully cover Windows, Linux, and AWS in 2025 in comparison to other vendors. And we can see there are three top contenders before the coverage really drops off, but Cynet was the only one that got that 100% coverage. And you can certainly imagine what the names are if you start to go through the results. And in this image, we can see that there are 4 vendors, including Cynet, who were able to go through the evaluation with 0 false positives. And what this also shows is some of the vendors are huge offenders and generate a lot of noise. And the vendors' names, have been redacted from the image, as I say, but this is all public. You can go check out for yourself who it might be. But that just goes to show, maybe that their efficacy is great, and they may, go on social media and say, yeah, we were able to block 100% of the things. It's like, yeah, but you got 71% false positives. That's almost, doubling the number of alerts that you're getting, and just a crazy amount of noise. In this
Kevin,
graph, yeah.
Sorry, I can't help myself. That's probably something we don't talk about enough because honestly, I have a lot of customers reach out to me and they're looking for new products because they are tired of the noise. They spend an hour every morning triaging unnecessary false positives. So it's a really good point. Not only are you guys effective, but your noise is low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, saves you time. I mean, you're not going in there looking at something that, or investigating something that has nothing to do with anything, or is it totally worthless to you, no value. Time saved, right? It is less times going into the interface for noise. This graph shows the number of changes that, Cynet was able to make and others were able to do during these evaluations. So only 2 of the vendors had 0 configuration changes, but this is really one of my favorite parts, as I said earlier, is that really anybody can get these results. It wasn't some special tech at Cynet that knows the secrets and can, really get the product to dance in that special way that we barely, did it. As it was asked earlier, which one was the hardest to block? Really, they were all equal, right? All we did was install the agent. our technology and the complexity of the technology is kind of what's combating the complexity of those attacks. And really, some of the main things that are driving that threat detection on our product are traditional ways and new ways coming together. And the traditional way is kind of from when I was growing up, the Norton antivirus and the signature-based detection, where you compare, a hash or a certain value to actual files. You say, is this bad? Is this bad? Is this bad? Takes a long time. We still use that for zero-day threats to try to find something, but it's a lot less, valuable, where in the new style of attacks, you're looking at things incrementally as they're happening. We combat that, or we add that style with the new age with artificial intelligence. So we're looking at things incrementally, which is a new way of doing things, but we're also looking at things with AI. And vendors, in most cases, are going to say, let's say that an attack looks like this, an attack looks like that. They go to the MITRE website. We know exactly what it should be. That's going to cause you to sort of define what to look for. So, you get a lot of false positives, but it's also going to lower your efficacy when attackers change what's happening tomorrow. And with us, it's more like rules. We tell the AI, don't let this happen, don't let that happen. Don't let them mess with volume, shadow copies, don't let them encrypt all my stuff. And that gives us our efficacy. It also gives us the open-endedness. So the traditional, signature-based detection, much easier and more quick to update, but certainly less open-ended. So we combine the two. Where we see the threat landscape changing, this is really where Cynet is shining. Big things have been kind of moving the industry to change from targeting big fish and shifting down market to smaller targets. And they're realizing that there's an increasing threat attack surface with more of our lives moving to the cloud. And that expanding surface gets more expensive to protect when you have multiple vendors working in a silo trying to protect assets from all these new angles. And businesses are increasingly seeing the value of cybersecurity as attacks become more prominent. So they're spending more. That's where we see $109 billion, in spending. With that, AI is also arming both the good and the bad guys, bringing these attacks to a whole new level of complexity. So the shifts are, it's not the big guys anymore. The little guys are being targeted. Why? Because they don't always have, the budget to cover. They may not be aware, or they think they're, traditionally they're not at risk. Obviously shifting budgets now, or people are spending more to say, yeah, I really actually do have to pay attention to this whole security thing. And with AI just making things complex, we can see it's really driving attacks. This slide, I think, really paints a great representation of the expanding attack surface. We can see in the middle the organization, and around the outside of the image, we can see all the threats that are coming for that organization. And the layer in between the two is the technology that is needed from a cybersecurity stack to combat the threats that we're seeing, right? The common theme here is more. More attacks means more technology to protect against them, more complexity, more to learn, and more things you need in your stack. Right, so we're just adding. It's getting bigger. It's just all these new types of attacks. Many of these are brand new or just a year old. Right, social engineering obviously on the rise. Phishing, malware, obviously something that's been around for a while. But Cynet, is kind of the answer to this trend. It's combining endpoint, network, SaaS, and cloud, bringing it all under one roof, meaning we can cross-pollinate, we can share information across these elements, and they're no longer working in a silo. So basically, they're not running independently. That translates to faster correlation, broader range of response actions, clearer detections, lower resource consumption, and more, right? Everything has been designed from the ground up to do exactly what it's doing. There's never been any acquisitions at Cynet. We've built all of our own technology. Many of the big players in this space are really like Datto, Sophos, Kaseya. They're trying to build their portfolios by acquisition, but now they're left like scrambling, trying to make all those products integrate. Well, at the same time, trying to stay innovative and keep up with the market, because the attackers are just flying at light speed now with AI. So vendors have to innovate, but they're like, oh, I need to do endpoint. I also need to do this. I also need to do that. So they buy up all these things, but now there's no cohesion. They're running all independently on your systems. It's eating up a lot of resources. They're not talking to one another, so they're really just like working independently anyway. It's not that platform effect. And Cynet actually is kind of already there, right? I like this slide to paint a picture of how this all manifests in the world. These results tell us that in practice, our efficacy is lining up with what we're seeing from the independent evaluations. So 97% of threats are identified autonomously by AI. We got this 0.9% false positive rate. 90% of attacks are automatically remediated. Lots of really quick, fast stats. But our main advantage that we have at Cynet is AI, right? This is what we have really created. It's called AI. It's a proprietary AI that we've designed. And the idea, as I was saying earlier, is that instead of defining what an attack looks like, we define rules. And if you break the rules, you get stopped. Easy at that. This gives us the ability to be more open-ended in our detection and really those lower false positives. And this slide kind of, speaks to that in layers. We got 3 layers: predictive, proactive, and productive. And these 3 items work together to stay ahead of attacks, right? We want to be able to identify them, recognize something as quickly as possible, and be able to adapt and say, hey, they crossed the line, that rule was broken, that was defined, and we got to shut them down very quickly. Along with the technology of Cynet comes a human element, and this is a 24/7, 365 SOC team. I think Brian mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the incident response and the retainer fees and things like that. This is all baked into the cost of the agent, so we bathe it into the price there. And this is really going to be an extension of the team. These are folks that are doing this day in and day out, and they're available to just essentially reach out at higher severity alerts over the phone, over email, take action if given the permission to do so, offer advice, work in tangent with your team, just enhance your cybersecurity posture. And the idea is the human element you combine, with the technology. We're automated, we're going fast, but now we're sharpening our blades here with somebody that knows how to use it and can kind of advise you on that and take action.
Hey, Kevin, I've got some good questions coming in. Maybe we'll take a break and I'll ask you. So do you guys parse syslogs from non-window devices sent typically on port 514? And maybe this is a good opportunity to talk about what operating systems you protect.
Yeah, so our agent protects Windows, Linux, and Mac devices. We also have another thing that we use for iOS and Android, Chrome, and Chromebooks. We do collect Windows endpoint logs, but outside of Windows endpoint logs, we also parse logs from things like firewalls, switches, a few NAS devices, 365 as well. For key specific firewall brands and for 365, we also not only parse the logs and allow you to search through them, create graphs and stuff. More importantly, we create XDR alerts on that data. So we listen and we collect and we let you search through it, but we tell you when something's worth knowing about, which I think is the most valuable because logs are super noisy and there's like a needle in a haystack that may not even exist. So XDR alerting is available on log collection for firewalls and 365.
Yeah, and I think that port was 5104, right? You said, Ryan?
514. Yeah.
514. Okay.
Depending on the device, it's going to come in on different ports.
Yep.
What is the retention limit for those logs, and what gets you into a territory where you're paying extra?
Great question. By default, when you're with our service, we give you 14 days of storage, 15 gigabytes, which if you do anything in that world, you're going to be collecting logs up into the point of firewalls, and that's when you start to spend extra for data retention. We have a couple different versions of our log packages. One which was just created called SIM Essentials, comes in 500 gigabyte chunks. Pretty nice there. And with that, giving you same log collection XDR, the 500 gigabyte chunk SIM Essentials is a 90-day hot storage, one year cold storage. But we also have other retention packages that would get you, up to unlimited or any other kind of sections in between.
Yeah, typically it's 14 days, 30 days, or 90 days hot with the option of 1 year cold. And as Kevin said, with that SIM Essentials package, it's essentially an easier way for us to be able to aggregate those logs in an easier format for you to calculate, right? So the 500 gigs of storage a month. The 90 days hot storage and the 1 year cold storage is all included in that.
All right. And your full SIM solution, does it meet PCI requirements? I'm not sure I know the answer to that one, Kevin.
I could check on our compliance management page to see what compliances we meet, and we can get back to you.
All right. So Todd, we'll follow up with you. Chris asked another good question. And by the way, please keep the questions coming. These are great. What decisions are fully automated versus require human approval? And then maybe you can also expand, Kevin, on your proactive option.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Brian. I'm trying to be correct, but I'm trying to think of something that is an action that cannot be fully automated. Honestly, there's very few things that we can't automate. A lot of the things that the SOC team is doing are pushing actions from our Cynet dashboard. Yeah, the human approval is good for things that are outside of okay, so there's basically two versions of the SOC team that you can have. That's what Brian was referencing. It's free. You're basically just picking which one works better for you. Initially, it starts off in collaborative where they call you up. They don't take action until they get your approval. So they can't actually do anything until they talk to you. The proactive, which is what Brian was mentioning, is what you can agree to or enroll in. And you can basically say, I give you prior authorization to isolate devices or disable users. And from that, essentially, they would decide, it doesn't make sense to do that first and then call you, or maybe if they can't reach you, then they decide to do it, et cetera. So there are sort of those delineations, but for my mind, I'm trying to actually think of an example of something you cannot automate. You can pretty much automate anything.
Yeah, Kevin, what I would add from my experience is that typically when you talk to a human, it's more of a triage, right? There was an automatic remediation and they're getting with you because it was serious enough they want to discuss it. And I would also add that with your proactive, it doesn't have to be your whole environment. So maybe you feel more comfortable isolating endpoints, but you want to talk to, a SOC analyst before that would ever occur on a server. That's possible, right, Kevin?
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Last question I've got right now. Do you have any examples of how fast the detection and response is for things like ransomware on endpoints?
Less than a second.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. One more question.
Yeah. Lateral movement. I see it.
Got it.
How do we handle lateral movement? So right now we have something using decoy files, canary files, things of that nature, which in my mind, when somebody's doing lateral movement, they're typically querying, they're typically looking and doing reconnaissance to try to find what they have access to and what they can see once they get to that device. So they land on something, they do reconnaissance to see what they can find, and then they move somewhere else and they do the same thing. So every time they're moving, they're doing those queries. So we have honeypots, canary files, decoy files. They come by many names that are the form of basically fake stuff, fake users, fake files that we automatically generate by default, simply by installing the agent. And that will spread all this fake stuff around the devices that we're installed on. And that way, when somebody starts to go through and do those moves, it's creating alerts when they're touching those things. Canary files, if you've ever heard of that.
Yeah, and something Kevin can demonstrate when we do a demo is also how Cynet reacts when it sees something unusual. It will actually reach out to the other endpoint agents and see if there's any bits and pieces of the same threat. Right, Kevin?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Drawing correlations. Yeah, that's often what I'm asking when I'm talking to the SOC team is, are these multiple alerts? Are these all part of the same thread, or is this independent attacks?
All right. Do you have an ARM processor compatible agent, Kevin? I don't know the answer to this.
Not supported, but it does work. One last thing on the lateral movement piece. We also have a feature that's coming in the pipeline. They haven't given us an actual date yet, but it's going to actually give you MFA prompts notifications when somebody is doing lateral movement within your environment, where typically we find that's not something somebody's doing on a daily basis. It's better to know about it, right? And it'll stop somebody from doing that in that case. So more coverage coming as well.
All right, Kevin, you're in the hot seat. I have more questions. Do you integrate with Cato or other SD-WAN solutions?
I don't SD-WAN solutions.
Yeah, I guess my question would be in what way? We'd
Yeah,
certainly be happy to follow up, Gabe,
yeah.
and talk more about that.
If it does syslog, if it does syslogging and we can actually collect examples from it, we could create a parser, even if it's not something we've dealt with before, and allow you to at least collect logs from that.
All right. And then Brian asked, not this Brian, other Brian, in the predictive analytics phase, what happens if learning what is in your normal environment includes pre-existing exploits, things that have been found on the machine that I assume haven't been seen previously?
Sure, yeah. So there's no learning period of the AI. When you install the agent, it's just going to hit the ground running. So just to clear the air on that. But you could do a historical AV scan. So remember, I was saying we look at things incrementally as things are interacted with on your device. They're brought into memory, into the RAM, and that's when Cynet is looking at it, interpreting it, and seeing if it's dangerous. So that means that you're correct. The dormant files that you're not touching that have been on the device before we were installed could still contain malicious code or something. So we have a feature called an AV scan, which you could simply trigger remotely after the agent's installed. You click run AV scan, and it'll go through and look at all those dormant files and look for those types of malicious codes. You could then set up playbooks that would say, if you find it on one device, go and look for it on all my other devices and see if this exact file exists elsewhere. You could just run an AV scan on all your devices whenever you see fit, just to clear the air. The idea, though, is that even if it's dormant and it gets accessed, once it's accessed and opened or something happens to it, we see it, we stop it. So sort of
Yeah,
just
and last thing I'll add, Kevin, is that a lot of these questions, they're great questions, but these are things that you'll actually see in practice when we do demos, right? So happy to do that.
Yeah. I have my 8-minute demo on YouTube as well. Not to plug myself. I'm not that famous yet. You just do
We'll include
Cynet
that.
demo 2026. I like the all-in-one version best. Awesome. So many MDR services are really just informing admins, and even less are driven by AI. So Cynet's both. It's integrating AI as well as taking actions in live threat situations. We use AI at the threat detection level as well as in interpretation of the alerts. It's called AI Insights. So we're actually putting AI just in all parts of the product. At the threat detection level, once it's detected a threat, let's use AI to explain it in plain English. We actually just, for the April release, we're slow rolling out a chat bot, AI chat bot within the dashboard as well. So you can say, how do I change this? Or how do I make this stronger? Whatever. So just really quick answers there as well. So really just bring that technology into the fold.
I always like to remind customers that, at Eagle, I talked about how we like to do our due diligence, but something else I always like to remind folks of is how long we've been focused with protecting customer data. Even before cybersecurity was commonplace, we were focused on protecting data and making sure you had recoverability at multiple layers, right? And of course, everything changed 10 years ago. Less customers called us up because they deleted a VM. More customers were calling us up because there was a threat in their environment. We quickly learned that we needed to tool up if we were going to help them mitigate that threat, figure out what had happened, and responsibly restore. And so, of course, we've continued on that. We architect recoverability and security at every layer. It's not just the endpoint. We want to architect multiple ways to detect a threat and to also have recoverability architected into your environment. My favorite saying here is that every solution you acquire or replace and every setting you change is an opportunity to improve your security posture and your recoverability. And that's something that Eagle spends a lot of time focusing on, and we'd love to join you in that journey.